So Julie already told you what the process was. And so it has been a little while since these pictures were taken. They were taken in July or in March. But as Julie said, some of these are not even going to be correct observations, and some of them will even be conflicting observations. But if you'll just open your mind to curiosity about what would make them think that. If they got that impression, why might they have gotten that impression? And so, you know, you don't have, feedback is a gift, and we don't take all the gifts and use them. Some of them we just re-gift and send on their way, thank the owner and send them on their way. So I want you to think, though, about the opportunity here to create a conversation. People move in the direction of their conversations. And if every single one of us can name what's wrong with our community. In fact, I could also tell you what's wrong with me and what's wrong with my spouse and so forth. But if instead we flip the chart on that and think about what's right with it, what's the opportunity here, what's working well, and how can we expand on that? And that's when we can create positive motion, is when we focus on what's going right. I want to tell you what the research says. Ben Winchester is a senior research fellow from the University of Minnesota. And he tells us, and the data pretty well supports it in the census data, that almost half of Kansas households moved in the, or excuse me, he says that rural is changing, it's not dying. As I record tonight, I am in Topeka, Kansas, and I could say almost exactly the same things about my community. That brain gain is something we never talk about. We always talk about brain drain, but in fact, for the last 50 years, we can document that 30 to 49-year-olds coming back to their rural setting is a trend that's been happening for a long time. But you'll hear, if you listen, you will hear a lot of emphasis on the fact that we need to present our community. You know your community, but you have to tell your story online, because people are researching places to live before they move to a rural town. And just like in Topeka, rural is in the middle of everywhere. I live in Topeka, I work in Manhattan, 60 miles away. I play another place, I'll go to Kansas City or other places to play, or come out to the country to play. With transportation and internet, everything is accessible no matter where you live. Now, Ben says that 46% of Kansas households moved in a 4-year span, and you'll see what the Census Bureau says about your town. In a survey of newcomers to rural areas, and this data took place in Nebraska, so we're not talking about a faraway land. We're talking about our neck of the woods. The reasons they came to those small towns was a simpler pace of life, safety and security, affordable housing, outdoor recreation, quality schools. You notice a job wasn't even in the top 10 reasons. But communities can work together to attract newcomers. In a small town, everyone knows each other. And, you know, I grew up in a town of 150. I grew up on the farm, but went to church in a town of 150 and to school in a town of 2,000. And it's just not true. It wasn't true then, and it's not true now. So get to know people, get to know those newcomers. Maybe set up a quarterly or annual newcomers meal and let them see how many newcomers there are in the room. It might surprise you. And remember that what you say and what you do does create the atmosphere in your town. And you've got a lot of good news in that area, and you'll hear it later. Here's something that might change your mind. 75% of rural homeowners are baby boomers, my age and older, and 30% of those are over 75. And he talks about the fact, I mean, there was a time where we worried whether we'd have enough nursing homes for all the baby boomers, but that's not the way it's working out. Instead, we need to be thinking about the fact that housing will be freed up if we can create smaller, more manageable places for baby boomers to live. and leave those 3 and 4 bedroom homes for somebody who needs them. We need housing, but it isn't going to be nursing homes. That we're a healthy group of people that are living longer. I'm not sure how I feel about the census data. You know, we've never had a census that was taken during a pandemic, and I can't help but think that this data, I'm curious what your reaction is to a 20% decrease in population in Oswego. I doubt it. I find that difficult to believe, but you know, it's something to talk about and to think about and to wonder whether that's bad data or a real problem. I am comparing this, and this time it's easy to compare. Instead of to Kansas data, they've given us the ability to compare you with the Parsons micro area, which seems more relevant to you. And so this data tells you what the median household income is for your community, and as it relates only slightly smaller to than the Parsons area. Your high school GED rate is higher. Those people who have at least a Bachelor of Science is about 16% compared to 22%. Your median age is right about where the Parsons area is. Interestingly enough, about 20% of your population is 65 and above. That doesn't seem like a very disproportionate number to me, about 20%. Look at this data. In your community, almost 24% of the people have moved in the last year. And so that really supports what Ben Winchester said, doesn't it? And these are people who moved into your town. Your poverty rate is lower than the other data. Now, I guess I should put a little asterisk on all this data. Again, this is the same data that I wondered about. So I don't know how well your census data was representative of your community, but this is what we have. So this is what we use. You are a very white community, as most areas are of Kansas, and less than 2% are Hispanic of any race. So one of the first things we ask your volunteers, visitors, to do is to look for a web presence. After all, we want to see how you present yourself to others. And when you get your comments, you'll see that you've got 14 pages of comments, actually 13 pages and some footnotes. But your volunteers were very descriptive, so there'll be lots for you to study later on. This is what your website looked like on the day that I retrieved it in August. The visitors thought it was very easy to find information, and they saw that the representations were accurate to what they actually saw, with lots of tabs and pull down information. Now, my thought is that if you look at this as somebody who is a prospective member of the community, it may not be as thorough or include the things that you would want to include if you were thinking about people who don't already live here. And I'll point out some of those areas later. They saw the Facebook page and impressive number of followers. Pay attention to the comments from visitors C. It's really tough to keep these non-working links going and find them, but she has found a couple of non-working links and some suggestions. Again, feedback is a gift, so if it's helpful to you, take that gift. Almost all of the communities I've served have had a Facebook generated page like this. And you know, I don't know what you want to do with it. I'm told by some communities that it's easy to take these over if you want to maintain it. If you think it represents you okay, or at least it's not harmful, why just leave it alone. But it's out there and it'll come up when you Google it. As for Facebook, when we check on Facebook to see what pages are located in Oswego, Kansas. There are literally dozens of Facebook pages. I couldn't count them all. And so that's a great show of the fact that your community is comfortable with online representation. And the more that you could do to co-locate or co-market, get together with your calendars and coffee, and maybe think about some strategies that you can cross market across your platforms to make Oswego the best representation that it can be. We ask the visitors as soon as they come in to go look at every single entrance, not just the one that they came in, but every entrance, and to give an overall impression. I do my best to try to capture some of these, but they're really redundant often of what they saw in the rest of the community, and we'll come back to them often. They saw that it was very welcoming with strong welcome signs. They noted a pride of ownership and people actively working in their yards. They noticed one sign seemed to be in the process of being built. The civic signs were rustic, but they said that the directional signs were good. Some houses are nice, but others could be improved with better upkeep. And many of these observations will be repeat or expanded as we get to other specific sections. And I'm sorry I'm going through them so fast, but you will have these. When you get your handouts on the back, it tells you where these PowerPoints and these remarks will be housed on our website. And you can go back and look at the recording. You can look at the PowerPoints, download them, and do whatever you want to. They noticed the camaraderie and the friendly chatter on the streets. More than one visitor thought the downtown streets would be enhanced by banners or plants or trees. We were here in March. It was, it's not the prettiest time of the year, but they're coming from a similar community that's in the same season of the year. And often we wonder whether they're comparing them to their own town. So I don't remember whether Arma had banners, but they thought that you could use some banners. One visitor remarked that some of the businesses could use better signage, and I wonder if you see what they saw. Sometimes I think it's because the businesses are closed, and sometimes you just know what's there, but we don't. Some beautiful buildings there. And when I look at this beautiful second story, I kind of have a frozen need. I'd love to live downtown, and there's some amazing examples of what's happening to downtowns as they restore those upper floors for living. Some buildings that have a lot of potential, and some that are already there. There's lots of pictures because you have lots of property, and that's a really great thing. You've got really nice infrastructure. This is one I just could not tell what this building was, whether I was supposed to go in or not. We ask them to comment on the public amenities, and we give them some examples. And so therefore they usually comment on those things like benches and trash cans. They really didn't see the benches and trash cans. You can go back in my pictures and notice them. One person said they thought Wi-Fi was available, and it's really interesting how in one small town promoter suggests that a nice welcome message to the public is to make Wi-Fi very available to your downtown. In one community I was at, they said, you know, we have Wi-Fi, but it just occurred to us that we don't tell you. So it's a secret. We just don't make it apparent to you. And here's the evidence that you do have benches and planters, but it's March, so they were empty. To the south of downtown, they saw the busy grocery store, and next to it, Bill's and Dollar General and a Home Health. And they were guessing that they were probably open because they had cars in front of them all. So it's in another direction. Usually we talk about other retail as being that place by the highway where there's a Dollar General, but you kind of have some little side streets with some other retail on it. And then we just don't know. We asked about industrial parks, and they said, well, we weren't really sure. We did find it eventually, but there's little to no signage. And here's what I would say to that. And a drive-by is not really how an industry will find you, as long as you're registered with the location 1 at Kansas Department of Commerce. Why? That's your avenue for your best avenue. And just know, though, that the entrepreneurs, the small business owners who are sitting right in your midst are responsible for more than half of all the net new jobs that are created every year. And so anything you can do to support, to promote, and to make them successful is a good thing. With global marketing, our town is accessible to purchases all over the world. Back to that online presence. Healthcare services. People could find your healthcare services, but one thing that I've seen on some small town websites, and this is my first example of a way that you might change your website to acknowledge that people might be looking who don't already know your town. They would put a category on their website for healthcare services. And it would be great to have to note on that website the distance people have to drive in minutes to get to a hospital or other specialists who may not be in town. Those things are really close to you, but don't make them research where they are. Put it right in front of them. You know, if you were in Topeka or Overland Park, you would still drive 20 minutes to a hospital, even if you were within the city limits. But in Oswego, it might be 20 minutes on the highway. Nice healthcare facilities. Housing. There's quite a variety of homes in Oswego, small and quaint, larger Victorian style 2-story homes, many ranch style 70s to newer homes. We didn't see very many for sale signs, and if we did, they had pending or sold attached to them. But as in every town, there's always a few homes that need a little maintenance. But in general, your audience, your first impressions visitors, and me, I try to find some poor examples, and I don't have any notable examples to show you. I try not to label them as such so that you can make your own judgments, but I just really don't have very many examples from Oswego. Rental housing. Unfortunately, even though we train our visitors, we ask our visitors to go into City Hall, none of them did. And so we kind of have told them, you know, if you're a new teacher in the Oswego schools, you'd probably approach City Hall. So find out what information they have about the things a new teacher might want to know. And so think about some of these things for your city website, so that people would know. We know that you can't keep up with what's available for rental properties. And so the question I usually ask them to ask is, in City Hall, if you go to City Hall, could they give you a list of landlords or property owners to give a call? So at least the potential new person could call those property owners. They did see some income-based housing. They didn't see much land that could be used for building new structures. I did notice on your website that you have free land. So if that's still true, you might want to make that more visible. These visitors did not see it. But they did think that your housing would appeal to young families and seniors. And another person noted the nice cabins, and she spoke quite a while to that owner. But even in the pictures of the ones that I thought I could identify as rentals, most of them were more accurately be described as destinations, or I shouldn't say most of them. I see the income eligible housing here, but the other two appear to be destination type of things or guest housing. This is another one. This data was starred on the census page as having at least a 10% error data. So, and it even says take care with this statistic, but it is the only one I have. So, and I can even find different numbers on different sections of the census. So this just, I don't know what it tells you, but we do it with an average household size of 2.1. That maybe indicates either young owners who don't yet have kids or older residents who are have empty households. Your vacant housing or your owner occupied housing, the owner occupied housing tends to be as high or higher than the Kansas average. This seems a little high to me if the vacant houses really are that high. But you notice that the Kansas Rural Housing Corporation, when they're doing grants, they require you to do a survey. And I think that's because this data just is not anything you can count on. But remember, we tend to think everybody has a computer. And if this is correct, about 13% of your population does not have a computer. And about 20%, 21% don't have an internet subscription. And so those are kids in school or people who might be trying to do work at home that don't have access. And you're generally well within the travel range that we would expect. I thought I'd insert right here, there's just a wealth of housing information right now. Lots of grants going on. There's a Kansas Rural Housing Summit going on as we speak in Wichita. And there are lots of moderate income housing grants, and they're going to be giving these out every 3 months. One thing that's new, this funding used to be $2 million a year from the state legislature, and they have appropriated $62 million for housing in this go round. So it'll be let out within the next 3 years. This one clearly had a house fire, and we know it takes a while to get rid of those, but it's a good illustration of the comment that one person said, that the real issue isn't the houses, it's the yards, and typical things that we'd expect. Schools, they saw Head Start, K-8 in high school, and they all appear to be very appropriate to meet Oswego's needs. I don't think there was any contrary opinions on the schools. with an adjoining junior and senior high. I don't know whether this bears any value to you, but one thing that I have noticed as I've gone across the state that I think is really cool, with our entrances being locked now, it's helpful to help people understand where to enter a building. If you're going to the gym, where's the gymnasium entrance? Because volunteers or visitors from the opposite team may not know which door to go into. Yours seems pretty able to be negotiated, but I've been to some schools that you have no idea how many doors we have to walk up to only to find an unlocked one. This national award for winning schools is very prominently displayed, and I'm glad you've done it. I noticed this outdoor learning site that was impressive. The online school information, again, because people are looking before they come to town, we wanted to know how do your schools portray themselves to the community? And they could see Facebook pages for great Facebook presence. And you're seeing there what I saw when I picked it up in August. With different pages from the PTO and the elementary school and the high school. And if you haven't seen this yet, this video shows when you come onto the homepage, but it's silent. It's beautiful. It's really beautiful. But it's less than 2 minutes. I think it's less than 1.5 minutes, but it gives you some really compelling documentation about what's so great about your schools. Well filmed. I'd say it's not the easiest thing to find. It's 2 clicks away from the home page under the tab for district information and learn about our school. And I think that could and should be much more visible. Here is an example I found by accident when I was looking for Mound City, Kansas schools and forgot to put in the Kansas. This is Mound City, Missouri. And I was so impressed with their homepage. Every single town can tell you, if you ask them, what do you like about your schools? Everyone has something to say. It may be different in every community, from the art teacher to the band leader to the instruction, the life skills instructions, but everybody knows what they like about their school. This is a website where they didn't make us look for it or make us guess. Remember that people are going to be looking besides just the people who are wondering what's for lunch on Tuesday. I know you've got the data. We just need to make it more visible. Childcare is another one of those areas that we're not going to find in a first impressions visit, but it's so important to you as a community that we ask the question anyway, so that you can talk about it in your conversations. So the data, though, tells us that Labette County, that's not just your community, but your county has childcare that meets about 64% of the childcare needs. So I've given you a resource there to see whether you're interested in figuring out how to make it more accessible or a higher quality or more slots. Childcare Aware can help you with special information. This is one that I thought was really interesting. There are contradictory observations about the appearance of your churches. And it's really typical that first impression visitors do not see any evidence of church involvement. However, one of the members in sequential census told us that they didn't see much evidence of community services, but they saw signs for a free Wednesday night meal at the Baptist church. And actually, that's more than we usually see. I thought it was very compelling that one customer, this person had quite an extensive conversation, maybe with one of you at lunch. And she seemed to talk to quite a few people and everybody was positive, and that's extremely helpful to your community when people speak so positively. But this customer said that the churches are all involved and they work together well. And that's a wonderful message to any new visitor to hear that. And it's a mystery to me why one person did not think that they were well kept. So I'll let you figure that out. Pictures somehow seem to reveal things that we don't see when we're looking at something very familiar. And if I'm going too fast, you'll have to study them later. Civic groups. One person noted the Museum and Historical Society. Several people noticed the Oswego Senior Center. There's no missing the Oswego Senior Center. One person thought it was in kind of poor condition. We'll look at the picture and see what you think. It was evident 4-H is active because it has a fantastic fairgrounds, a nice community center, and a Chamber of Commerce. And we saw earlier the signs coming into town that the Kiwanis and Rotary clubs are there. I don't know if I mentioned it when we looked at those signs, but the signs weren't in great shape. That you might want to consider whether that represents you as well as you think that you want it to be. The only thing I wonder about the senior center is whether they just wanted to see a little bit of softness and some landscaping or other accents. And if this is not an abandoned building, then I suggest that you take off the Lions Club sign to make it clear that it is available for somebody else. If it's being used, it doesn't look like it. We ask about the public infrastructure. And one of the things that we don't see very well is walkability. So you need to evaluate for yourself. Do residents feel safe when they're walking? Are there safe routes to school? They did see that there were well-marked signs and traffic control signs and average wear and tear. A lot of mature trees throughout the residential and along the highways, but we just can't evaluate walkability very well. On the south side of town, there needs to be street signs. The streets are narrow and the paving is okay, not great. This is one visitor's notes. And another person thought there needed to be a great big lighted sign at Tomahawk Lane to tell people that the junior high was there or the high school was there. They wondered if they would find the turn at night. City Hall, as I say, I'm disappointed that none of the visitors went inside City Hall because that's where we asked them to look for rental housing or childcare or civic groups, those things that normally you can't see. Everyone was friendly. She depended on the city news flyer that she picked up at a business. Apparently she went to the post office, but she didn't go to City Hall. And so think about what you know, if you wanted them come City Hall for information, if you could possibly put it on the website, that would make it still available to people. This is City Hall and the fire department. When we ask about fire, EMS, and police services, one person said they're both nice buildings, well maintained. Another person said I didn't notice the fire station, but good police. When I drove around the neighborhood twice, a police officer seemed to be checking me out. And I think that's great. I don't see a problem with it. Although I have been in towns that I almost felt intimidated by the amount of police presence, but I'm sure that wasn't true in your town. I put this ISO public protection. You have a volunteer fire department, and you want to make sure that your ISO public protection classification is is well supported. Some of these fire departments don't have the equipment or the training that they need, and that impacts all of your your homeowners and your business insurance because of the ISO public protection classification of your fire department. And I'll bet your city councilors know what that ISO rating is. The library, one visitor was not impressed with the outside and didn't feel comfortable going in the library. It is interesting how often we built buildings in that time frame where we had stairs. I guess nobody had any hip or knee problems back there. We just died early, but yeah. Next, the city parks, they saw, wow, what a Riverside Park is an amazing asset to your community. Next, the fairgrounds, they saw a large assortment of playground equipment for various ages and interests, a very well-maintained grounds and a walking trail with nice views. That Riverside Park is just amazing. Sports complex at the high school was also fairly new. Here's your pictures. I was I don't know whether I've gotten to that comment yet, but one person thought that your pool needed work. And I'm not sure what that comment was about, maybe, but take it for what it is. Recreation and tourism, well known for any attractions or events. They noted the signs about the renowned sports artist, Ted Watts, and the Riverside Park and the Labette County Fairgrounds. We asked them about a slogan, and they weren't aware of a slogan, but they've always known it for the river that goes by Oswego. Natural or man-made features that would draw people. And again, it's really the same things, the Neosho River, the Riverside Park. It's great that you have RV campgrounds and a historic bathhouse. The fairgrounds, community center, baseball and softball fields. We do ask about a visitor center in case, but in most towns, as in yours, the city hall serves as a visitor center. If you have great representation on Main Street by businesses and residents who talk positively about your town like you do, why every person is a visitor center. What would bring you back? This person, I actually recreate these almost verbatim from their comments because I think they're so important. One person said they would definitely come back to Black Crow Trading Company, the Stonehouse Grill. I plan to return later this spring and summer to see Riverside Park in full bloom. I hope to make it to more of the stores that I did not see or shop this time. One person came on Monday when they couldn't go into the flea market they wanted to see, but had heard wonderful things. I thought that it was really interesting that she spoke about a specialty business for 3D sonograms. That would stand out for her. Come back for the chicken coop and the Black Crow Trading Company. Enjoy more time at the fairgrounds, the Riverside Park, or the sports events, or the church events. Most positive experiences. I really enjoyed all my experiences at Oswego, and most of all the friendliness. I look forward to returning and seeing what else they've done in preserving the good and the positives, the new things and projects. I know with their very obvious commitment and love of Oswego, they will be continuing to develop and to do. to honor, maintain, and not lose its past, but also while growing, evolving, and progressing into the future. Schools, the parks, the tennis courts, the grocery store, all are an A+ for the community. The friendliness, the schools, Riverside Parks, the fairgrounds, great to have a grocery store, a Casey's, and a Dollar General in the community. Obstacles? Well, nothing specific to Oswego and its citizens that's any different than any other small rural Kansas town. But if they continue to work together and stay flexible and creative, they'll do great things. Downtown facades on the businesses could use updated. The courthouse could use a makeover. It needs some restaurants also. Could use an updated swimming pool. Really could use some senior housing and community center. And lastly, one person said the houses could be kept better. Also for people to improve the downtown area and have more civic groups. The downtown area could be really great if people would improve the building facades and add benches, trees, banners, and plants. What will you remember? This is such a compelling visitor statement. I hope you get a chance to read the entire thing. She must have had a 2-hour lunch. She says, this is one of the friendliest places I've ever visited anywhere. It was very comfortable, very at home, the experiences, the surroundings, and the people. A lunch customer talked about the pride and hope they have for Oswego, and that several of the younger generation that grew up and moved away from Oswego are returning back to live and raise their families. They're opening businesses, and that these are also the ones that are the newer and growing members that have joined in the efforts of the chamber. And please do read the rest of this comment, because there's another sweet anecdote where somebody came up to her and said, I heard you talking and I want you to tell you my story. So that's, you just can't create that. That's something, that's a Chamber of Commerce moment, if ever. As Julie said, we don't actually tell them to keep it a secret. I've done 71 first impressions around the state. And my impression of Kansans is they just show you who they are. Even if you're in a K-State car and tell them who you are, they will be rude to you or they'll be nice to you. They just show them who you are. 6 months from now, what will you remember? Riverside Park, very peaceful and pleasant. The excellent school facilities, and that people need to work on their properties. There are some beautiful houses. They just need to be kept up. It's also hard to find the courthouse. I'm used to courthouses being a focal point in a county seat. Your 2 flea markets are a draw. The fairgrounds, the school facility, and the community center are great. So very quick recommendations is just remember that potential new residents are researching before they come. So use your city and your school websites to make it just as blatantly clear to people before they move on what you're proud of. Show us what you're proud of right up front. Tell your positive stories. Make your residents want to contribute to a positive story. Have you ever noticed that when one person starts a positive story, other people contribute to that? And even in a town the size of Topeka, I can only relate to where I live. But it was those 30 and 40-year-olds who have turned Topeka's downtown around and made us all talk positively about our town instead of disrespecting where we live. So be the person who chooses to contribute to that positive conversation, knowing that the way that you talk and the way that you act are contributing to the way that people feel about Oswego. I'd really like to thank our volunteer visitors, and after I turn off the recording, you can do that. We've promised them anonymity, and then it occurred to us that we were putting their thank yous right on the screen and then posting them. So we've stopped doing that. In a minute or two, I'm going to show you a few I want to show you some other K-State research and extension resources for you, but we want to start talking and thinking about what this is going to lead us to. So Julie, if you'll get to the front while I go through my acknowledgements of other things K-State's doing. We have pride communities, and those are opportunities for local communities to assemble around the things they'd like to preserve, create, or improve for their future, and helps volunteers to work together. We do a youth community perceptions, which is a way for you to bond your youth and let your youth give their perceptions of your community. Like what are the things that they love about their community and the things that they'd like to enhance. We have grant writing classes and support. You know, there's $3.8 billion with a B dollars of infrastructure money coming to Kansas. And we want all the counties and the communities in Labette County to be ready to get some of that infrastructure money. And we're trying to create a system of support for you. If you don't already know about it, we do small business calls. This Friday is the first Friday call. And a city manager from Valley Falls, she's going to tell about her community, her successes in another community in creating moderate income housing using a scaffolding of various resources. And then remote work. In October of 2020, a publication called Upwork said anywhere from 14 to 23 million Americans are planning to move as a result of remote work, because now they can choose to live where they want to and work from there. This source, which says that the pivot to remote work is the biggest transformation in the labor market since World War II mobilization. So you have to be thinking about the fact that people would like to live in Oswego for your great schools. Let's give them an opportunity to do so. Both Julie and Francis have participated in the remote work certification and can tell you about those opportunities. We have a rural grocery initiative to help maintain your grocery store and keep it there. And then this is a resource that I just love, where these folks, I really recommend subscribing to it. It's gotten it's not nearly as vibrant as it was for a while, but they've got some great recommendations and ideas. One of my favorite is called the Idea Friendly Town. And that gives basically everybody the authorization to go and make good things happen. I think this is interesting that according to a Gallup poll, Americans, the only group that doesn't want to live in rural areas are Americans under age 30, which this supports Ben Winchester's data that says people want to come back to the rural areas. And here there's climate change issues that make people choose to come back to rural. We're not in any danger of being flooded out here. And here's a great example of a tiny town that co-markets and help each other out so that they both survive. In that Save Your Town resources, as I said, they call it coffee and calendars, where basically the chamber gets together and creates a marketing plan that they all can support. So now it's back to Julie for leading the discussion.